Bandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Sya Om Jnana Timaranda Sya Gyanajana Shalaga Chakshurum Lidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gorva Bhistam Supurakam Guraganara Sishu Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govinda Bidam Ujvalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Varanam Balarka Chelanshitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Mandetam Shubharam Maneka Sharanam Neshishwara Sridharam Manchakopatarubhyasya Kripasindu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're hearing from the Sri Chaitanya Bhagawat by Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur. This is Madhya-khanda, chapter 5. We're continuing with this. The reading of Madhya 5, the Vyasa-Puja of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Okay. All around, the devotees began to chant hymns about Balaram, and Vishvambar kept repeating, Nara, Nara, the name by which he would call Advaitacharya Prabhu. The Lord continued to call out, Nara, Nara, and his head began dropping as if intoxicated, but nobody could understand the inner meaning of the word Nada. They asked, Lord, who is Nada? The Lord replied, on whose loud beckoning I am here. The personality you call Advaitacharya Prabhu is Nada to me in my present incarnation. Nada has brought me down from the Vaikuntha planets, but now he is enjoying peacefully with Haridas Thakur. In this incarnation, I shall propagate congregational chanting of the holy name in every house in answer to his calling. However, I will not bestow the gift of loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord to those wretched and fallen people who, being intoxicated with material knowledge, wealth, family, and austerity, are naturally offensive to my pure devotees. Otherwise, I shall bestow that supreme gift of Krishna Prema, which is most desirable, even by Lord Brahma, to everyone without discrimination. The devotees were overjoyed upon hearing the Lord, and the Lord gradually became tranquil and at rest, coming to external consciousness. The Lord asked the devotees, were my speech and actions uncontrolled? The devotees replied, no, nothing was inconsistent. The Lord embraced everyone with great love and affection and said, please always forgive my offensive nature. All the devotees began to smile. Surely they thought the Lord is joking. Unable to control his ecstasy, Nityananda Prabhu began to roll on the ground. Nityananda was completely immersed in the nectar of Krishna Prem. Sometimes he laughed, sometimes he cried, sometimes his cloth fell away and he stood naked in the mood of a young boy, which his body manifested. His sannyas danda fell in one direction, and his water pot and clothes in another. The great sober and tranquil personality, Lord Nityananda, was now restless and uncontrollable, but Vishvambar personally pacified him. Chaitanya's words acted upon the maddened lion Nityananda, just as a goad acts upon a maddened elephant, and Nityananda became steady. The Lord said, be calm, for tomorrow you shall perform Vyasa-Puja. Having spoken thus, the Lord left for his home. All the devotees returned to their respective homes, and Lord Nityananda remained in Srivas Pandit's house. Late in the night, overcome with ecstasy, Lord Nityananda began roaring like a lion. He broke his danda in Kamandalu. He broke his danda in Kamandalu, water pot. Who can fathom the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Who knows why Lord Nityananda broke his danda and kamandalu? Early next morning, Ramai Pandit saw the broken danda and kamandalu. He was amazed and perplexed. He went quickly to Srivas Pandit and reported the matter to him. Srivas Pandit said, "Go inform Sri Vishwambar." When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard of the activities of Nityananda from Ramai Pandit, he immediately came to the house of Srivas Pandit. There, he found Nityananda laughing constantly in a trance. Vishwambar took the danda and led Nityananda to the Ganga. Srivas Pandit and the other Vaishnavas accompanied their lordships to the Ganga for a bath, and there Vishwambar personally threw the danda into the river. Nityananda, still in trance, was restless and did not heed anyone's advice. Therefore, Mahaprabhu would sometimes chastise him, which would pacify him a little. However, a crocodile was swimming down the river, and upon seeing it, Nityananda jumped in to catch it. Immediately, Srivas Pandit and Gadadhar Pandit raised an alarm, calling, "Hi, hi!" Fearlessly, Nityananda continued swimming towards the crocodile. In the midstream, only Chaitanya's words could placate Nityananda and bring him back. Vishwambar loudly cried out to Lord Nityananda, "Come immediately and let us proceed with the worship of Vyasadeva." Obeying Vishwambar, Nityananda came out of the water and accompanied the Lord back to the house of Srivas. Soon after, all the devotees assembled and began chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Srivas Pandit was appointed the head preceptor for the Vyasa-Puja, and upon receiving instructions from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he executed them carefully. A continuous sweet kirtan converted Srivas Pandit's house into the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. Well versed in all scripture, Srivas Pandit performed the ceremony according to the strict injunctions of the scripture. He gave Nityananda a garland of fragrant flowers and said, "O Nityananda Prabhu, please take this garland, and after reciting the appropriate mantras, offer your prayers and obeisances to Srila Vyasadeva." The scriptures enjoin that one should personally garland Srila Vyasadeva in his worship, and if Srila Vyasadeva is satisfied, then all one's spiritual desires will be fulfilled. The more Srivas Pandit spoke, the more Nityananda repeated, "Yes, yes, yes." Apparently he paid no heed to Srivas' words and seemed to not know which mantras to recite. He held the garland and muttered something softly underneath his breath, which nobody could hear, and he just looked all around. Srivas Pandit reported the matter to Lord Chaitanya. "Your Sripad does not want to worship Srila Vyasadeva." The Lord immediately came to the presence of Nityananda and said, "Nityananda, please listen to me. Offer the garland to Srila Vyasadeva and worship him." Nityananda saw that Chaitanya was there, and he immediately placed the garland upon the Lord's head. The fragrant flower garland on the Lord's curly hair made a beautiful sight. At that very moment, Lord Chaitanya revealed his six-armed form to Nityananda Prabhu. The Lord held in his 6 hands the conch, disc, mace, and lotus of Vishnu, and the plow and club of Balaram. Seeing this, Lord Nityananda Prabhu immediately went into an ecstatic trance and fell unconscious with no symptom of life. All the devotees became very afraid and started praying, "Protect him, Krishna, protect him, Krishna," while the son of Jagannath Mishra roared loudly and repeatedly slapped his thighs. Chaitanya then bent down to lift Nityananda up from the ground, saying, "Nityananda, please get up and steady your mind. Listen to the chanting of the holy name that you have begun. The reason you descended to this material world is to propagate the chanting of the holy name, and now you have perfectly succeeded in this mission. What more do you want? You are the absolute proprietor of the treasure house of Krishna Prem, the embodiment of sublime devotional love. No one can receive Krishna Prema unless and until you distribute such nectar. Therefore, please get up and look around you. Glance mercifully upon your own beloved associates who surround you. You may distribute the greatest wealth to whomever you desire. If anyone nurtures even the slightest dislike for you, then although he may worship me, I will never accept him as dear to me. Lord Chaitanya's words brought Nityananda out of his trance, and upon seeing again the Lord's six-handed form, he went into a state of great ecstasy. Nityananda Prabhu is non-different from Anantasesha, in whose heart Lord Gaurachandra is an eternal resident. Without a doubt, Nityananda is non-different from Balaram. Lord Gaurachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all incarnations and pastimes. Therefore, he should manifest his six-armed form is not astonished. Therefore, that he should manifest his six-armed form is not astonishing. In his incarnation as Ramachandra, he offered oblations to his departed father. At that time, his father, King Dasharatha, appeared in person to receive the oblations. If this can be considered wonderful, then the Lord's six-armed form is also wonderful. However, all of this is natural for the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna because his pastimes are extraordinary and supramundane. Nityananda Prabhu's natural propensity is to serve Gaurachandra, and he is never distracted from this service even for a moment. Just as Lakshman served Ramachandra constantly with his mind, body, and heart, similarly, Nityananda Prabhu constantly engages in Gaurachandra's loving devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord of every living entity. He is unlimited and the source of everything. Yet he enters the material realm and causes the creation, maintenance, and annihilation in the material world. According to the verdict of the Vedas, he is the absolute truth and the supreme controller. Yet he remains unaffected by the phenomena of material nature. In spite of his supreme lordship over everything, Anantadeva, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, is eternally engaged in rendering loving devotional service to Sri Gaurachandra. In every yuga and in every incarnation, his natural mood is to serve his Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. As Lakshman, he became the younger brother of Lord Ramachandra and served him constantly. He neglected eating, drinking, sleeping, and other such activities to constantly serve the lotus feet of Sri Ramachandra. Yet he still felt unable to satisfy his intense desire to serve. As Sri Balaram, he was the elder brother of Sri Krishna. Yet he could not forsake his attitude of service to the Lord, referred to Krishna as his master. And he was always in the mood of rendering loving devotional service to Krishna. Such is the wonderful nature of Sri Nityananda, Anantasesha. Only the most foolish rascals will see a difference between Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Balaram. One who disrespects a devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu commits a great offense at the very lotus feet of Lord Vishnu himself. Sri Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, is so elevated that Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva offer praise and worship to her, yet she is naturally inclined to serve the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu, Krishna. Lord Balaram, Anantasesha, is the omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet his natural inclination is to serve the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Sri Gaurachandra feels most satisfied when he can describe the glorious and wonderful devotional attitude of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. It is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gaurachandra, to be subservient to the devotional love of his devotees. Therefore, the Lord especially likes to glorify his own dearmost surrendered devotees. There is a special significance in serving the Supreme Lord. There is a special significance in hearing the Supreme Lord glorify his own devotees. The Lord and his devotees like to glorify each other, and in this way increase their attachment for one another. I have faithfully presented that which has been propounded in the Vedas and Puranas about the relationship between the Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu and his unalloyed devotees. Lord Nityananda has only one thought in his mind. Lord Chaitanya is my Lord in every respect, and I am his devoted servant. Whoever considers me to be the servant of my Lord and Master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, becomes very dear to me and receives my shelter. For the pleasure of Sri Nityananda, I have described this pastime of his seeing the six-armed form of Sri Chaitanya. Nityananda always sees the transcendental pastimes of Chaitanya within his heart, and Chaitanya always exhibits his transcendental pastimes in Nityananda's heart. Certainly, the two brothers always see one another, yet still the specific services Sri Nityananda performs are always in accordance with the pastimes of the Lord's particular incarnation. Although Sri Nityananda is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he always serves Sri Gaurachandra. The Supreme Lord thus accepts service from himself, who can understand such ecstatic pastimes. The Vedas and Puranas have revealed these philosophical matters. The Vedas and Puranas have revealed these philosophical matters. The Vedic literature is actually a compilation of all the wonderful pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Moreover, it is the foremost objective of the Vedas to propagate the pastimes of the Lord. However, it is not possible to comprehend these spiritual pastimes without engaging in the pure devotional service of the Lord. In this material world, there are only a few who, by the mercy of Sri Gaurachandra, have realized the truth of the nectarian, unlimited, transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna. The Vaishnava devotees of the Lord are eternally pure and realized souls. Sometimes there are differences of opinions amongst them, which might appear like arguments. However, in fact, there is an amazing relationship between devotees. Foolish rascals who do not understand this exchange praise one Vaishnava and denounce the other. Such a mentality will lead to destruction of faith and knowledge. The scriptures state that when a foolish wretch worships the lotus feet of a Brahmin and then strikes him on the head, he will be sure to go to hell. Similarly, when someone worships the deity of Sri Vishnu but disrespects or disregards Sri Vishnu residing within everyone's heart, he also goes to hell. So, similarly, when someone worships the deity of Sri Vishnu but disrespects or disregards Sri Vishnu residing in everyone's heart, he also goes to hell. What to speak of committing offense and violence to a Vaishnava devotee? If someone offends or tortures even an ordinary living entity, yet worships Sri Vishnu, the Lord of every living entity, then all his worship is worthless and he suffers great pain. To worship Sri Vishnu on one hand and be ignorant about Sri Vishnu being the supersoul in everyone's heart on the other is like touching a Brahman's feet for a blessing with one hand and then beating him on the head with the other. Such foolish persons do not know what is most beneficial for them. To criticize a Vaishnava devotee is 1,000 times more sinful than offending an ordinary living entity. The person who faithfully worships the deities but has no love and respect for the devotees also does not possess any compassion for the ignorant and fallen conditioned souls. He accepts one incarnation of the Supreme Lord and worships him while he rejects another. He treats Sri Krishna differently from Sri Ramachandra, seeing a difference between them. He does not show any respect or devotion for Balaram or Shiva. Such persons are described in the scriptures as the lowest and weakest of devotees. The Srimad Bhagavatam states, a devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta, an impure materialistic devotee, and is considered to be a kanishta adhikari in the lowest position. In the course of discussion, I have just briefly mentioned the symptoms of a neophyte devotee incidentally. Upon seeing the six-handed form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda was overwhelmed. Whoever hears this wonderful pastime of Sri Nityananda is immediately released from material bondage. When Nityananda came out of his ecstatic trance, he began to cry profusely, tears flowing from his eyes like rivers. Lord Chaitanya then said to everyone, the Vyasa-Puja worship has been completed. Now let the kirtan begin. The devotees were jubilant when they received Lord Chaitanya's orders and immediately began to loudly chant Sri Krishna's transcendental names. The brothers Nityananda and Chaitanya danced like two madmen, having severed all contact with this phenomenal world. The Vyasa-Puja was celebrated with great joy and singing, and the Vaishnavas became even more inspired and jubilant. Some danced, some sang, while others rolled on the ground, catching each other's feet. Lord Chaitanya's mother, Sachimata, everyone's worshipable mother, sat alone and watched the transcendental merrymaking. Each time she saw Nityananda and Vishwambar, she thought to herself, both of them are my sons. The celebration of the Vyasa-Puja was very ecstatic. Only Sri Sesha himself could attempt to fully describe such ecstasy. I am able to give only indications about the wonderful activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. However, I know that one advances spiritually if one glorifies the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna in any humble manner. The day passed into night, and the devotees went on celebrating the Vyasa-Puja, dancing with Vishwambar. The Vaishnavas were mad with ecstatic joy, and they wept, crying out, O Krishna, O Krishna. In this way, the Lord propagated the process of loving devotional service to himself. After the kirtan, the Lord sat down with all his devotees. He spoke to Srivas Pandit, saying, quickly bring the Vyasa-Puja offerings. Srivas Pandit arranged for all the prasadam to be brought in, and Vishwambar himself distributed the prasadam to all the devotees. The devotees were in bliss to be personally served by the Supreme Lord Sri Gaurachandra. The Lord called everyone from inside the house and gave them prasadam with his own hands. Receiving prasadam directly from the Lord is extremely rare and fortunate, even for the greatest of personalities like Lord Brahma. But now even the servants and maidservants of the house were receiving that greatest spiritual treasure. Who can describe the glories of Srivas Pandit, in whose house such spiritual activities occurred? Thus the Supreme Lord performed wonderful pastimes in Navadip, but not everyone was aware of them. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are my life and soul. I, Vrindaban Das, humbly offer this song at their lotus feet. Hari Harai Nama Krishna Jarabaya Nama Hari Harai Nama Krishna Jarabaya Nama Jarabaya
Harinam Sankirtana
Parikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmamacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyashta Tara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyashta Tara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Sunanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premasigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Bhagawat Ki Jai. Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Vishwavarenya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Dham Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Koladvip Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Vrindaban Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan, Sham Guna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Ju Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.